We're recording, by the way.
Good. You're obsessed with that.
Heck yeah, it's gonna be good. I think we actually led off last year with. Hold on, if you'll excuse me. See, we do everything very professionally around here, and I have a visitor.
A visitor?
Yeah, hold on.
This is a first, folks. I did not know about this. Okay, so anyways, while he is talking to his visitor there, so those of you who...
Yeah, don't worry. We're gonna start over because I got interrupted.
Sorry. What are you doing?
I'm recording a podcast, Mom.
For God's sake, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You should let people know these things.
Please keep this recording.
And we're live.
All right.
Again.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of a pod with a name now. We finally landed on one. And if you like it, let us know what you think. We are rolling with Inside the One. The 2018 NFL season is in full swing with the NFL draft being 5 days away. It's one of my favorite days of the year. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Tom.
It is an absolute pleasure to be back with brand new energy and a new season and a fresh start. It's going to be good.
Yep. Fresh start to the season, fresh start to our new podcast. I'm wearing a new headset. We're using a different audio system. Everything is off to a brand new start.
It's going to be a good year. And of course, Bryan will be joining us down the line. Can't be with us tonight, but when the season kicks back up and into full swing, and then when we have probably our next show, Bryan will be back. And of course, we're always ready for guests like we were last year. So I'm sure that we'll have a multitude of people on.
Yep. Looking forward to it. Speaking of Inside the One, what you guys are going to be hearing inside this podcast is our first NFL mock draft before the real one takes place on Thursday. Now, how we did this last year is we split it up into odds and evens. And for this mock draft, Tom has elected to choose the odds, and I have received the evens.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to be doing the same thing we did last year, rotating between picks. This year, we actually get to pick our own team's draft picks. I think we did both versions last year, but we're only doing the one mock this year, just between the two of us.
Yep.
Basic mock rule or mock draft rules apply. No trades. Everybody has to stay where they are. And top to bottom, 1 to 32. We'll see how the first round shakes up.
Yep. We can't do trades just because it's impossible to predict that. We can't tell who's going to be trading up or down and whatnot. And as usual, per pick, we'll be giving a brief description as to why we think that player will go to that respective team.
Oh, yeah. And
so
might take us...
Go ahead.
Whoa. I was just going to say it might take us a couple seconds in between picks because we are doing this live. We have not made our selections beforehand, so you get to hear a little bit of our inner monologue and kind of hear what we're thinking exactly for each team, a little bit of explanation as to why we make the picks that we do. So,
yep, it's going to be all on the fly for the most part, although we have done our research for each team's what they need, what they're looking for, what they're hoping to develop, if it's a certain prospect and all that. But without further ado, I do believe that the Cleveland Browns are officially on the clock.
As is tradition, the Browns have a couple of top 10 or top 5 picks this year, actually, after the couple of trades that they've made. So they're in good position this year. I think they have four of the top, what is it, like four of the top 60 picks or something like that, where they, get a chance to kind of rebuild this roster and continue what they were doing last year with the three first rounders that they were able to secure. So I think everybody is on the same page when the Browns are concerned at number one. Generally, quarterback needy teams kind of, bite on that opportunity. There's two guys in mind that I think are in play for the first pick. And it comes down to whether or not I would do what I would do, or if I would do what I think the Browns might actually end up going through. It's between Sam Darnold and Josh Allen for me.
Mm-hmm.
I will not rule it out. The Browns will take Josh Allen, but I think for the purposes of the mock draft, the Browns are going to select quarterback Sam Darnold from USC. It's I think he's the safest bet. Many people have said that Josh Allen is the highest ceiling and the lowest floor. So I think that's what kind of sways the Browns to go towards Darnold. He played at a big school, has that, that big stage presence. He's cool, calm, and collected. Maybe a little bit of a turnover issue, kind of. But, quarterbacks have gone on to kind of overcome that at the pro level. But I think Darnold has the skill set that the Browns are going to be looking for to kind of groom behind Tyrod Taylor for a season or two. And then he will take the reins, and hopefully by that time the Browns roster will have solidified itself.
Yep. Like you said, I will not be surprised if they do take Josh Allen over Darnold. There's that rumor going around that general manager John Dorsey loves Josh Allen. He loves the fact that he has a big arm, mobility. But like you said, Sam Darnold is definitely the safer option of the two. And I think, especially for the Browns' sake, I would go with the safer option.
They've had too many misses at quarterback to take a home run swing, so to speak.
Yep. With that selection, I think that means the Giants are now on the clock. So the early talk surrounding this pick was that the Giants were going to take the successor to Eli Manning. However, I think the rehired GM Dave Gettleman believes that he could get a solid 2 to 3 more years out of Eli Manning. And from personal experience, I know how he likes to draft. And there's two things that you need to remember when it comes to him is he loves his hog mollies, and he sticks true to drafting the best player available. And they could go the route of taking Bradley Chubb, since they traded Jason Pierre-Paul. Would not be a bad pick, considering Bradley Chubb is arguably the best pass rusher in the draft, or overall pass rusher in the draft. However, if you want to get production out of Eli Manning for another 2 to 3 years, you're going to need to be able to take pressure off him in the offense. And I think in order to do that, you take the best player available at this rate in the draft, and you take Saquon Barkley, running back out of Penn State.
Yeah, I like the pick. I think that he very well could go number one overall in any other draft or any other scenario where a quarterback wasn't an absolute necessity, because I think he probably is the best player in the draft.
Mm-hmm. In my opinion, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very good. He can do it all.
Yeah, and that fills a need for the Giants. Jonathan Stewart, he's they did sign him, but he's, again, like Eli, got another 2 to 3 years at best, and you're going to need someone to take the reins eventually. And according to most of these scouts, Barkley's the highest rated running back coming out of college since Adrian Peterson. So you might want to jump on that.
It's high praise. He'd be the go-to guy in that backfield for sure, and that would definitely help out their offense and take the pressure off of Eli. They have weapons on the outside, so that could be a really good fantasy pick too.
Yep.
All right, well, enough about the G-Men. It's time to move on to that other New York team, the gangrene New York Jets. They are also in a situation where they need to look towards the future and grab that quarterback. My picks so far have been pretty boring. I'm taking all the cues, but I think once again this comes down to two guys, in my opinion. It's Baker Mayfield and Josh Rosen for this slot, and there's a lot of hype and a lot of talk around Baker Mayfield right now going to the Jets. I think that
according to some, it's a lock.
Yeah, according to some, it's a lock. I think personally it's a smokescreen. I think that they're trying to get somebody to bite, maybe for trade value. But for this purpose, I'm going to have to make Josh Rosen the selection here, the quarterback from UCLA. I think he has probably one of the best intermediate arms in the draft this year. Watching some of his combine stuff, the way he throws in cuts is a thing of beauty. It is an artwork every single time he does it, and he has a deceptively good deep throw as well. So he it's not as good as Josh Allen, but he has all the tools. There are the questions though about whether or not he wants it as much as some other people, because, obviously in draft season, people look way too deep into things. And since his family comes from money, they question whether or not he actually wants to succeed at the NFL level. I mean, take that for what you will. I think if you get to this point in your career, you have to have a passion for it, else you wouldn't keep doing it. I mean, you put your body through hell week in and week out. You have to at least enjoy it a little bit, right? So, so I think Rosen is the guy for the Jets.
Okay. If it were me, not if I were the Jets, but if I were making this selection, I don't know. I'm buying into it. I think they will take Mayfield. I think one thing about Mayfield that you can't question is his passion for the game. You can see it on the sidelines. You can see it in his post-game interviews, his Heisman speech. I think his passion for the game goes unmatched with the other quarterbacks in this draft, and I think that's what the Jets is kind of the morale booster that they're looking for in the locker room.
He would definitely be a spark plug, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I do think Rosen is the safer option of the two, so I get it. Like you said, he's probably the best intermediate thrower in this draft. So, moving on from the Jets, back to the Browns at selection number 4. If Barkley was still on the board, I would easily have him go here, but since he's not, I'm looking at what I think the Browns need the most. And to me, I think they are going to want to build on their defense here, starting with the ground up, developing that foundation on the D-line. And I think they're going to want to complement Myles Garrett on the other side, and I think they will take Bradley Chubb, defensive end out of NC State.
I like it. I think the Browns would be very pleased with how that developed in this particular scenario, because either way, if Barkley happened to slide or if Chubb is the one at 4, it's a golden pick.
Yep. Like I said earlier, he's the best all-around pass rusher in this draft. He can beat you with speed. He can beat you with power. He can just do a little bit of everything. Kind of reminds me of Khalil Mack, I would have to say.
Oh, okay. I see a lot of Mario Williams too when he
Mario
first came
Williams.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, back when the Texans had that choice to make between him and Reggie Bush and Vince Young, but yeah, Chubb's.
I would say they won that one.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
it could have went one way or another, but yeah, Williams seemed to be a good pick. But yeah, he looks good. I'm excited to see it, and that gives him two really good pass rushers then with him and Garrett.
Yeah, that's going to be, and they're both super young too, so that's going to be a deadly combo for like the next decade if they can snag that.
Oh yeah. Well, that brings us to a team that has no shortage of defense the past few years, but as with my other two picks, I have to go with another QB here. It's no secret. They do have Case Keenum now, but let's be real. Keenum has had one really good season, and other than that, there hasn't been a whole lot. So, in a similar position to where the Cardinals are with how they signed Sam Bradford to a 1-year deal, I think the Broncos are looking to the future a little bit with their quarterback position. Obviously, the two guys that they took, Lynch and Simeon, didn't pan out. So here with the pick, we finally get Josh Allen off the board. I think that he was made to be a Denver Bronco. I feel like this is like a match made in heaven for them. This is the guy that they'll probably try to trade up for. Already plays out there in the West since he went to Wyoming, and he just kind of fits that general region. And then he has the huge arm that's gonna, he's gonna be able to throw the football from one end zone to the other end zone out there in the altitude. So and they've got weapons already. So, and a good defense to back them up. So I think that the Broncos are going to pull the trigger on Josh Allen.
I like it. I love the fit. It just makes sense. He's from that area. It just seems like something that we could potentially see on draft night.
I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to trade up. But for the sake of the mock.
Yeah.
Them or the Bills.
It's hard telling who's gonna trade up. I see the Bills or the Dolphins as a couple of teams who could trade up. I see the Broncos and the Colts trading down. If a player they want's gone, it's hard telling.
It's very true. I'm interested to hear your next pick because they have this holy trinity kind of thing going in the Colts rumor mill, and I'm ready to see whether or not you take the remaining person off that list.
Okay. So I was going back and forth on this one, mainly because when you really look at their roster, they need a lot. They need help on the offensive line. They need help at receiver. And now the offense all hinges on whether or not Luck's going to come back and healthy. But I think what you really need to address here, if you're the Colts, is your defense. They had one of the worst defenses in the league last season, and I think a good pick here would be to take Denzel Ward, someone to complement Quincy Wilson on the other side. But then I got to looking at their linebackers, and they are not good, to say the least.
Yeah.
Last year they took Malik Hooker. He showed promise for the majority of the season until he got hurt. So I think that pretty much locks up that position there. But when you look at their linebackers, their best one is Antonio Morrison, and that's just
it's trouble.
That's just not going to cut it. I think it looks like they have a total of 4 linebackers on the roster, and they need to address that. They need to get a leader on defense, and I think the best linebacker that fits their scheme would be Tremaine Edmonds, inside linebacker from Virginia Tech.
Love it. I love Edmonds. Ever since I think you were the first person that mentioned him to me when we were talking about the draft like a few months ago, and absolutely love the way he plays football.
Yep.
He's going to be a instant starter.
Oh yeah, he's very versatile. He can play pretty much wherever you want him to, and I think that's something the Colts desperately need in the front seven.
Yeah, they need to start rebuilding the core of that defense. Unfortunately, I guess not really unfortunately, because they picked up a lot of draft picks, which they desperately need.
Yep.
But had they stayed at 3, they would have gotten Bradley Chubb, which would have fixed their defensive end position. But
most likely,
I think that moving back, they pick up a lot of ammunition in the draft, and still being able to get Tremaine Edmonds is, that good job by the GM in that one.
Yep. Is that who you thought I was going to say there?
That is a negative, sir. I did not expect Tremaine Edmonds here.
All right.
But that will probably change in the next couple of picks when this guy goes off the board, but we won't spoil it. So, I get the Bucks, and the Buccaneers need to fix their secondary really bad. So they have Chris Conte, I think, is their best safety.
Yep, the let go of TJ Ward.
Yep, that's not good. So they need to reach into the college pool of players and pick out probably the best safety in the draft, and maybe the best secondary player in the draft. I might say that, because this guy is a freak of nature, and is going to make an instant impact for the Buccaneers secondary, and that is Derwin James from Florida State.
Nice.
He is a
Florida.
monster.
I like it.
Yeah. Comes from the same kind of mold as like Jalen Ramsey. Just plays the game with heart, never quits, and tests out of the world. It has all the athletic ability that he could possibly have, and will be an excellent addition for the Buccaneers secondary.
I like it. It definitely makes sense. They need to find a long-term answer at safety, and I think Derwin James is definitely good enough to fit that mold.
Oh, yeah.
So speaking of revamping the secondary, specifically with the safeties, or corners, sorry, I think that the Chicago Bears are also going to address the secondary with the 8th overall pick in the draft. Now, I think that the Bears actually have a very underrated defense, specifically with their front seven. Their front seven is very good. However, I think, considering the division that they are in, having to play Randall Cobb and Devontae Adams twice a year, Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs twice a year, they need help in their cornerback position to be able to cover those guys twice a year. So I think with this pick, the Bears would take the best corner available and go with Denzel Ward from Ohio State.
I like it. I do like it. I think he's going to be, probably won't be the last Ohio State DB to come out from the Kerry Coombs regime, but just another solid defensive back to come out of Ohio State in the past few years, as much as you hate to admit it.
Yeah, he's very aggressive off the snap. That's what teams like about him. There's also a possibility that they could go offensive line and take the best guard with Quentin Nelson. However, that's not a very popular top 10 selection. I think Nelson is going to fall a little bit in this draft. I feel like every year you can get a quality starting guard in like day 2 or day 3 of the draft. So, granted, Quentin Nelson is astronomically better than a majority of the guards in this draft, but you need to invest heavily here in the secondary.
Yeah, Nelson is definitely hands above everyone else in terms of pro readiness, and he is very clearly the number one guard. And that was my other person in the Holy Trinity there for the Colts. I think that they might take a look at Quentin Nelson, but
Yeah, they could.
but when you look at the value at offensive line compared to DB, it's it makes a lot more sense to take a defensive back this early than it does a not left tackle. Essentially, if it was a left tackle that they needed, and there was somebody in the class that was, the next Joe Thomas, then by all means. But since there isn't, I think that Denzel Ward's probably the best bet for the Bears at this point.
Exactly. If you have this early of a pick, you're gonna need to invest that top 10 money into a position that, I guess, matters more than an offensive guard.
Yeah. Okay, moving right along here to the 49ers. I think going with tradition here, another team that has been extremely stout on defense, especially at one position, which they'll be reloading at here in this scenario.
Nice.
And that's at the linebacker spot. If you take a look back at the lineage there for that position group for the 49ers, you have Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman. He had a few good years with Aldon Smith, but and then the guy his name's escaping me right now, the guy that retired a few years ago.
Chris Borland?
Yeah, there you go. Chris Borland. He only played one season. I think pretty sure he was either an All-Pro or a Pro Bowler, but he was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So they reload at this spot because they've invested a lot in the D-line the past few years. But Roquan Smith from Georgia is my pick for the 49ers at 9.
I like it.
I think he definitely fits that team with their mentality and should be able to be an instant impact player for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think on offense, they still need some parts on the offense. I think they could use another wide receiver. I think I'm not 100% sold on Jerick McKinnon, so running back may be addressed later.
Mm-hmm.
But at 9, I think the best value here is a linebacker.
Definitely. They need someone to, like you said, take that leadership role that has been left by Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, and Chris Borland. They are lacking that in the front seven. And I think Roquan Smith, one of the better linebackers in this draft, would definitely be a smart pick.
Oh, yeah. So we move on to the Raiders,
Oakland.
The soon-to-be Las Vegas Raiders.
That's right. To the Oakland Raiders. Now, originally, if they were still on the board, I would have them take Roquan Smith or Tremaine Edmonds. But since they've both been selected, I think the Raiders are going to go best player available. And to me, at this point in the draft, is Mika Fitzpatrick, safety from Alabama. And in my opinion, I think fills a need.
Okay, I like it. Put him next to
I think Reggie Nelson.
Put him next to Reggie Nelson and the kid they got from West Virginia.
Yep, Carl Joseph.
Yep. That's right. See, that's why I have you on this show, because you always fill in the blanks when I can't think of somebody on the spot.
Yep.
So I got the school, but you got the names. That's fine.
Yep. I do think that if Edmonds and Smith were off the board, I think the Raiders could potentially trade out, gather more picks. But for this purpose, I think they will stay put and take the best player available.
And he is a good one for sure. And then they also have Ronnie Harrison later in the draft from Alabama, but
Yep.
it's another solid draft class from the Crimson Tide, which leads us into another college football playoff team getting one of their players selected into the NFL to the Miami Dolphins. I think there's also a lot of talk about the Dolphins taking a quarterback because Tannehill hasn't shown much in terms of his pro career. Also been battling some injuries.
Mm-hmm.
The way that they handled his knee injury was shocking, I guess. Maybe might be the right word, or maybe that's the wrong one because I mean they basically ruined an entire season of his career. He never should have been on the field without having surgery.
Yep.
That was the dumbest decision I think they could have ever made, and it's going to cost them a first round pick, which might actually help them in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of building around a quarterback who would be coming back healthy and potentially have shown something to them, they're back to square one. But they get their quarterback this year in Baker Mayfield.
Nice.
From Oklahoma. So I think this is another pick where we could see a trade up possibly, where the Dolphins move up into the top 5 to grab him.
Mm-hmm.
But with no trades, they get lucky and take him at number 11.
I like it. Yeah, him and Rosen are the two that I've seen most commonly linked to the Dolphins. I think either would be a solid pick. But yeah, like you said, for this purpose, since we can't predict the future and say which teams are going to trade up, I think they do end up getting lucky here, and they would definitely take Mayfield in this situation.
Yeah, unquestionably probably the most fiery player in the draft, and I think that helps the Dolphins with their retooling of the culture down there in South Beach.
Yep.
And on the complete opposite of South Beach, we move to snowy Buffalo.
Oh, yeah. With the Buffalo Bills now on the clock, they have already traded up from, I think it was 22, 23, all the way up to 12. And you don't move up, make that big of a leap unless you're going to try and grab a quarterback. And I think that's exactly what they are going to take here. I think they're come draft night that they're actually going to trade up even further, perhaps into the top 5, and grab either a Josh Rosen or a Josh Allen if they're still there. But since in this scenario they're staying put at 12, and I think they're going to stick with their intention and go with quarterback, and the best quarterback available that I think would fit their scheme, especially it resembles similarities to what they had with Tyrod Taylor. I think they will take Lamar Jackson.
I love it.
Quarterback from Louisville.
That's right. Not wide receiver, a quarterback. Yeah. I like it. I like that. Somebody needs to take a chance.
Absolutely.
They really do.
If you look at completion percentage when under pressure and getting blitzed, Lamar Jackson is at the top of the list, especially with his accuracy.
Yeah, he's I don't know. He's the kind of quarterback that could I don't want to say too much, but could possibly usher in more spread concepts into the NFL. I mean, he's way too athletic and too accurate to not be successful in like maybe like a run and shoot system.
Mm-hmm.
So bring back the old the K gun back in Buffalo, and just see if they can make that system work. They had Tyrod, they just never really committed to it. Mm-hmm. So I think Jackson could probably fill the gap there.
Yeah, and he has some quality targets to throw to with Kelvin Benjamin, Charles Clay, and LaShawn McCoy. Like they have the the capabilities of being a dangerous offense.
Yeah, hopefully Zay Jones can turn things around and
Yep.
get back to football a little bit.
Yep. Not have any more
But
meltdowns would be ideal.
yeah, I don't think that's exactly what they wanted to see, but it is what it is. I suppose
It happens.
It does.
Moving on to the nation's
So they bring. That's right. The Washington. We don't have Kirk Cousins anymore.
Yep.
But they do have Alex Smith now, so that's a positive. I think they basically traded even, in my opinion, for that particular scenario. I like Alex Smith. I don't think he's terrible, but I also don't think he's gonna be Aaron Rodgers for you.
No.
I think you need to surround him with some good people. But he played really well in San Francisco. He played really well in Kansas City, and I think coaching was probably the biggest thing that held him back. Honestly, for whatever reason, they never helped him out. But I think the Redskins. They need some things, but there's a particular guy on the board still who is a freak of nature and a game changer on the interior defensive line that has been linked to the team from pretty much day one. And after his combine performance, I think he solidified himself. This puts him next to Jonathan Allen and Ryan Kerrigan, and it's going to try to get that interior defense for the Redskins back up and running. And that is Vita Vea from Washington, the defensive tackle.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly. I think it makes sense. They need help in the middle there, and Vita Vea is probably the strongest nose tackle in this draft. And he's a machine, and I think that's what they're going to get if they pick him.
Yeah, he's a monster. And do you want to give a shot at trying to say his actual name?
I do not, but
neither do I. Moving on to the Packers. If you don't know what we're talking about, look it up, and you'll be very surprised.
Yep, try it out on your own. Let us know how it works out for you.
Make sure to leave it in the comments.
I hope when they announce his name that they pronounce his entire name in its entirety.
If Roger Goodell can't pronounce Mariota, this isn't going to end well.
Which means he's going to absolutely nail it to a T.
Oh yeah, 100% he's going to get it correct. and perform a mic drop as well. He's just like nailed it, got it. Yep.
All right. So anyway, moving on to the Packers here. I think their offense is set. I think it has been for a while now. If you have Aaron Rodgers, that's pretty much all you need. I think they could use some help in the running game to take some pressure off them, but they still have Aaron Rodgers. That's all you can all really ask for. However, when I'm looking at that secondary, they're getting destroyed in their secondary when they play against a very high octane passing offense like the Vikings or the Lions in their division. Case Keenum throwing it all over him last season. Matthew Stafford throwing for 5,000 yards a season. I think the Packers need to address their corner back position, especially since they lost Casey Hayward. That was a huge mistake. They lost Demarius Randall to the Browns this season. They drafted Kevin King last year, but they need someone to help complement him on the other side, and I think they would take Josh Jackson, cornerback from Iowa. I
like that pick.
He is a turnover creator. From when I watched him a little bit in college, and he also helps bolster the special teams too. He can return punts and kicks, and he's an excellent in coverage. So I think that's something that the Packers would want to grab here.
Yeah, I think he had a he had a game this past year where I think it was Ohio State where he had 3 interceptions,
Yep.
and they actually turned one of the interceptions into a T-shirt. Found that out on Good Morning Football when they had him on for a visit.
Yep.
It was a very impressive looking grab, but Josh Jackson's really good. And he's going to be an excellent player for the Packers should that fall that way.
Yeah, nice. He had a nice one-handed grab there.
So that takes us to the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals, they need, especially with the departure of the Honey Badger, they need to get some secondary help. I know that Patrick Peterson has said on a few occasions that they lack a number 2 corner. So I think that the safety depth in this draft doesn't really justify a selection here because the gap between Fitzpatrick and James is a little wider than you would like to be selecting at 15. So I think that they go for that number 2 corner, and we may get our first kind of surprise selection a little bit higher than maybe a lot of people would think he would go, and that's Jair Alexander from Louisville. I think he can go in there and, set up next to Patrick Peterson, learn from him, be able to pick up the tools of the trade, and then, kind of take over for when Peterson ends up leaving. But Alexander's was rated pretty highly at the beginning of the year, maybe slipped a little bit now to where he's looking at that, mid to late first round, maybe even very early day 2, depending, on how things go. But
yeah,
Alexander will be the next corner off the board.
I like it. Sticking with the Cardinal.
Wasn't intentional, but I see what you did there.
Hey, it makes sense. Makes sense to me. I'm just going with
Same reason why the Broncos are going to take a fellow Bronco and Josh Allen. It's like, why not?
Yeah, all my picks have been purely based off team colors. So,
yep, that's right. Yeah, that's how I pick my NCAA bracket. That's how I do my mock drafts.
yep, exactly. So moving on to the Ravens at 16. And speaking of what we were just talking about, you're gonna like this next one. So
here we go.
There is a rumor that the Ravens are interested in Dez Bryant since his departure from the Cowboys. I think that is a likely destination for him. However, since he's not there yet, I still think that they need to address the wide receiver position. I know they got Michael Crabtree, but I think it would be in their best interest to give Joe Flacco some help, specifically through the air, and especially if you want to especially if you want to help give longevity to his career. And I think they get I think the pick here, they'll take the Maryland product, DJ Moore, wide receiver from Maryland. He's basically a Steve Smith clone. He's an excellent slot guy. He's a speedy guy. I think that's something Joe Flacco would love to have added to his receiver core.
So we're going strictly based on uniform colors and what city they happen to play in. So that's that's always good. But but yeah, I like DJ Moore. I think he has definitely been a hot riser the past few weeks with the amount of talk that he gets because he is a speedster and people just love wide receivers in the draft, especially when they can run fast. But I think he's the number 1 receiver off the board for us, which may or may not surprise some people. But I think that he's definitely deserving. As we saw last year, first-round wide receivers didn't really have a good go. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people expect, was that the class of 2014 with Odell and Mike Evans, and they expect that kind of result like out of every single class now, but it just doesn't happen. But hopefully, DJ Moore doesn't have that top five tag on him here, so he doesn't come in with as big of expectations as some others have.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh yeah, so that brings us to the LA Chargers at 17. So hold on, I gotta look up some people who went to school in San Diego. I mean LA.
There you go.
Let's see. So Los Angeles, UCLA, USC is kind of close.
San Diego State, Rashad Penny.
San Diego, yeah, that's right. No, I think that the Chargers are going to break our little trend here. They have a really good defense. They have offensive weapons. I think one of the things that they're missing is inside linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
So the next best guy off the board is I'm going to call him a Bryan Urlacher clone, but I think Leighton Vander Esch from Boise State, despite some medical concerns, is going to find his way at number 17.
I like it.
For the Chargers. I think that's a good fit for them. They get the enforcer in the middle to kind of roam that middle of the field while the corners are doing their thing, because they have a really good defense. I feel like they're going to be in the thick of things for that AFC West.
Definitely. Why not? Yeah, just keep adding to your already good defense. That's nothing wrong with that.
I might as well. Yeah.
I think that's out of the personnel in that defense. I think the linebacker is I guess you could say the weak point there. So moving on to the Seahawks now. It's one thing to make note of from the Seahawks this season is that they had quite possibly the worst offensive line in recent history. And I think given the way this draft has shaped up so far, I think we finally see our first offensive lineman come off the board, and they would take Quentin Nelson, offensive guard from Notre Dame. And I think if they were to do that, I think this would be the smartest choice that they could make. And if they did that, hopefully that would help bolster their non-existent run game and and give Russell Wilson from protection, because he's basically just running for his life every play.
He's good at it for sure, but it's not the ideal situation. Their offensive line has never been the same since Walter Jones and Steve Hutchinson left.
Yep.
And that was early 2000s, back when Sean Alexander was the talk of the town. But and even to a lesser degree too, back when was it Max Unger, I think, or Alex Mack, was one of the two.
Oh, Unger.
But when they lost, it was Max Unger. Mack was with the Browns. But when they lost Max Unger, that was the final straw for that offensive line, and they just completely crumbled. So the fact that they get the consensus number one guard here for this pick is a total gold medal win for them.
Absolutely. It would definitely be the best player available here as well. Yeah,
definitely agree. That brings us to the Dallas Cowboys, which we mentioned it earlier that Des Bryant is no longer there. So that leaves their receiving core with a little bit of a need. I feel like they fill it here with a local kid again, not to continue on that train, but it is what it is. They get a chance to scout the guys in their region a little bit more than they do the national players. So I think that the Cowboys take our second receiver off the board, and that's Cortland Sutton from SMU. I think he
nice
fits that. he fits that team pretty well. He's going to be able to come in and I think even take the start or the number one spot from Terrence Williams. But yeah, Sutton's an excellent receiver. He'll be able to thrive, and Dak definitely needs something to take the pressure off of Zeke because we saw that they crumbled when Zeke wasn't in the lineup last year. So they need some more weapons to be able to solidify things in case they don't have Ezekiel Elliott.
Absolutely.
So a small school wide receiver to the Dallas Cowboys. Never thought I would hear it.
Yeah. Which brings us to the Detroit Lions at 20. There's been a lot of talk of Marcus Davenport being linked to the Lions for some time now, and I think that would be a great pick. It makes sense. You're going to need help on your defensive line, getting after quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers. But I think they will take a hard look here at the running back position.
Oh,
because
don't do it to me.
Because Theo Riddick has been excellent in passing down situations. They'll even bring him in on some goal line packages, third downs. But then you have Amir Abdullah, who I'm convinced now that they're not exactly sold on anymore. You saw his play time start to diminish a little bit and more go to Theo Riddick. But I think when you look at those two, they are very similar when you think about it. And I think to add a different dynamic to that running back core, they're going to take someone here that's going to give them a power running style, someone who's going to run up and down. So for this scenario, I have the Lions taking Darius Geis, running back from LSU.
Oh, I like it. So you're not convinced that Darius Geis's goofy nature is a red flag?
I'm not. No.
No. Such draft talk this time of year. It's ridiculous. Geis is the Leonard Fournette of this draft.
Essentially, yep. Pretty much. And I think
he's the bulldozer.
I think if they were to take him, that would be a whole new change of pace to that offense, and I would like to see that. I like the fit.
Absolutely. So that brings us to the Bengals, who they definitely don't need a starting running back. I think that Joe Mixon is going to be the guy there. I think he proved it, that he has the ability to make plays on offense, and he was able to solidify that position when Jeremy Hill and Gio Bernard couldn't really separate from each other. Feels like they just kind of were waiting on each other to make a move, but nothing ever happened. But anyway, so the Bengals, they definitely need help on the O-line.
Oh, yeah.
They have I think left tackle is something that they are going to wait and see on. But they could potentially grab a tackle to groom to replace Eric Winston because he's getting a little bit up there. But I think with what they have at guard, I am not convinced at all. So they're going to take another kind of late riser in the draft process, and that's going to be Will Hernandez from UTEP.
Yeah,
I like him. He's a bulldozer, and he will fit in that offensive scheme and be able to help clear the way for Mixon.
I like it. Yeah, they definitely need help in the interior of that offensive line desperately. And I think Will Hernandez would be a perfect selection here.
Yeah, instant plug and play
Definitely.
guy. Sorry about you, Clint Bowling.
Yep.
or maybe I don't know. He would probably win the job.
Yeah, I would imagine.
But
He definitely he looked phenomenal in the Senior Bowl.
yeah, him and Isaiah Wynn were two of the offensive guards that really kind of shined. So, but Hernandez with his strength numbers that he put up, he will definitely get the call early.
Yep. Now moving on to the Buffalo Bills at 22.
I'm sorry, you meant the Carolina
that's what
Bills?
I meant, actually. Sorry about that.
Or was it the Buffalo Panthers? I can't remember.
Either one works. I like Buffalo Panthers personally, but
Okay, we'll go with that one.
so earlier in the draft, I had them taking Lamar Jackson at number 12, getting their potentially getting their quarterback of the future. I think here at 22 they will stick to revamping the offense a little bit, and I think a smart idea here would be go and get your newly acquired quarterback a weapon. And they have Kelvin Biggin, they have Zay Jones, but given what's happened in recent events with Zay Jones, he seems like he might have some personality issues off the field.
Maybe.
And Kelvin, the past few seasons, he hasn't managed to stay fully healthy. He was out for an entire year in 2015. There's always that lingering weight issue that comes up with him every offseason. So I'm not 100% sure if they're going to re-sign him once his contract is up. But given those reasons, I think they're going to give Lamar Jackson his go-to guy of the future, and that would be Calvin Ridley.
Oh, I like that.
Wide receiver from Alabama. Not apparently type.
Just Calvin? Is that what it's going to be?
And again. Okay.
Because you guys can't see it, we're keeping track of our picks on a document, and Dylan can't type.
There it is. After 20 seconds, I have finally got it typed out.
Finally.
But yeah,
we got it. But yeah, Ridley from that good Alabama offense, being able to take the lid off of defenses should be a good addition. Be like that Sammy Watkins type role in the Bills offense that they used to have.
Oh yeah. I
hopefully a lot more.
I love it. I think the new dynamic that him and Lamar Jackson could bring to that offense would be pretty scary. It'd be a very quick offense, to say the least.
Yeah, they need to run that really, really fast, like pop pass offense that you see, where receivers run a lot of slants, a lot of bubble screens, stuff like that, quick hitches, all that. Just get the ball in your playmaker's hands and, make a guy miss and off to the races.
Triple option with Ridley, Jackson, and McCoy.
I mean, it's pretty deadly. But yeah, and then they still have they have Benjamin on the outside still, so they got that red zone guy. But yeah, excellent pick. I like it. New England has a left tackle problem.
You can say that.
They lost Nate Solder in the offseason. So they're going to be finally taking, I think, the best tackle in the draft. And in my opinion, the best tackle in the draft, which is going to be a little surprising to some people, maybe. But I think once this guy actually gets on the field and gets in a Patriots uniform, he's going to make a name for himself. And shockingly, the first tackle off the board is going to be Colton Miller from UCLA.
Interesting. Okay.
I like him over McGlinchey from Notre Dame. It's just, I think most people would just put it at a coin toss, but I think that Colton Miller steps into that offense and fixes their left tackle problem instantly. But I have him just very, ever so slightly above McGlinchey from Notre Dame.
I like it. Makes sense to me. Yeah, their left tackle is definitely the biggest issue right now. With him and McGlinchey, it's more so boils down to personal preference, what you see on tape. But yeah, it makes sense to me, and I definitely like that pick. And now,
Yeah, if they don't decide to go tackle here, I would be surprised. Yeah. I feel like that's one of the lock picks of the draft.
Yeah, they definitely need to go offensive tackle here. Speaking of a team that needs an offensive tackle, this next team will not be addressing the offensive tackle position because they have other areas of need that need addressed, and that is the wide receiver position and the defensive back position. Now, I do believe that if a Calvin Ridley or DJ Moore was still on the board here, that would be the selection. However, since they are not, I think they will go to their other area of need and address the secondary with the safety position. If you look at their safeties, it does not look good on paper. They have a total of 3 safeties on the roster, which is not ideal, especially the way defenses are ran now. And I think they need to add someone to this core group, someone who can come in and make an immediate impact, start day one. And I think that person is Justin Reed, safety from Stanford.
Okay, I like it. But you have Denoris Cersei. I mean, what more could you? Yeah, Justin Reed's an excellent player. He's going to be solid. Another one of the good safeties in the class. The handful of guys that are there. But yeah, Panthers. If there's not a wide receiver on the board, I think that's where they should go.
Absolutely, and I think even honestly, if it were me, let's say Reed and DJ Moore was still on the board here, I would still take Reed over Moore just because how big of a glaring hole they have there with their safety group, and Justin Reed absolutely needs to be the pick here if he's still there.
Okay. Speaking of glaring holes, here come the Titans at 25. So this actually leaves me in an interesting situation because 2 guys, well, there are 3 names, I think, in particular at defensive end / edge that these guys would be looking at. But I don't think 2 of them will be on the board. I think this is how it's going to end up. I don't know why, but I think 2 of the guys that are available that I'm thinking of are going to be drafted a little bit earlier. I think there's probably going to be a shock one somewhere in like the top 15. But So I'm stuck trying to make a decision between my head and my heart. And I know the Titans also need an inside linebacker. I think guaranteed this pick is going to be a defender come Thursday when they actually get on the board if they don't trade down. My gut is telling me Josh Sweat from Florida State. But since he's still on the board, I'm taking Marcus Davenport from
absolutely.
University of Texas, San Antonio. I do not think he's going to be there. But if Davenport's on the board, then you have to take him.
Absolutely.
Davenport is the one guy in this class that I watched probably 3 hours of film on. I kid you not. And I'm impressed, to say the least. I think that he's a massive human being, one. And he has really good attack at the line. So I think with with Arakpo and Morgan in contract years, and both of them getting pretty old, being able to bring in Marcus Davenport would be the absolute best case scenario for the Titans.
Oh yeah, that would. Yeah, I don't see him being there either. I can see him going as high as 14 to the Packers. That was another team I've seen a link to him in mock drafts. But absolutely, if he's there, then he needs to be the pick.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I think both Davenport and Harold Landry will be off the board by this point, just because I think somebody will either trade up or they'll shock the world and grab those guys. But yeah, Davenport here is the best option, the best possible scenario.
I like it. Going back to the NFC South, one position that needs addressed, in my opinion, for the Atlanta Falcons here at 26 is the defensive tackle position. They just lost Don Terry Poe, and they've never had really that much consistency in the middle to pair with Rashid Hagman. Okay,
I think it's
I want to say
Hagman.
Hagman. So in that case, I think they add to their defensive line here. In my opinion, I think the best defensive tackle that fits their scheme would be Taven Bryan, nose tackle from Florida.
Oh,
I really bad wanted to say Mo Hurst from Michigan, but I think giving the story about his heart condition that came about early in the this off season, that might still scare some teams away. I envision Hurst going into the mid to early third rounds. But in my opinion, I think Taven Bryant would be the best fit here for their scheme. Kind of reminds me a little bit of J.J. Watt, to be honest.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, I saw from what I've seen. Yeah, he does remind you a little bit of JJ, which is scary. But
oh, my apologies. There's no T.
Mo Hurst probably.
There's no T on the end of it. It's just Taven Bryan, not Bryant. I butchered.
So like Daniel Bryan.
I butchered the name there.
Who I've been mistakenly calling Daniel Bryant for like the past 3 years.
Looks like it happens to the best of us.
And none of you have ever corrected me, so how was I supposed to know?
I'm just going to let you figure it out on your own, just like Plaxico Barres with Kyle.
Odell Beckman? I love it. I hope he doesn't listen to this.
He probably will.
Just kidding. Love you, Kyle.
Or Mark Ingram.
Yep.
That's my favorite one, I think.
It's definitely up there for sure. Speaking of segues to Mark Ingram,
the
Saints. Yep. I think their running back situation needs some work.
Really?
Yeah, I think that they don't have it figured out at all, and that they need to. They're solid on offense outside of one position. The wide receiver spot, I think, is going to be all right with Michael Thomas. It's going to be fine. Running back, obviously, is not an issue for the Saints. If you have two Pro Bowl running backs, I think you're probably pretty good, including the rookie and fantasy darling of the year last year with Alvin Kamara. But one thing that they don't have, and they haven't had since Jimmy Graham left, is a tight end. Kobe Fleener is not a good football player. I'm sorry, but obviously they had to bring in somebody though because they needed help at the position. But I think the Saints end up fixing that problem with Hayden Hurst from South Carolina. They'll probably, one or two best tight end in the draft. Take your pick between him and Dallas Goedert.
Yep.
Or even you can probably throw in the kid from Penn State.
Mike Gesicki. Jasecki.
Yeah, Gasicki, because
He's Jimmy Graham
he had an
2.0.
excellent combine. He is, yeah. He ran out of the building at the combine, but I think Hurst provides them with the kind of versatility that they need in that position. And for the value, I think they can get him here. No problem. Shouldn't be.
And he's also
He'll definitely be
a
on the board.
solid blocker too. So get you some good hands and some added depth to their run packages. Moving on to 28 with the Pittsburgh Steelers here. If it's one thing that the Pittsburgh has been notoriously known for, in my opinion, I think it's been their linebackers. They lost a very good one this season to a very unfortunate injury with Ryan Shazier, and I think they're going to need to fill that void since he's going to be out with injury. I don't know the timetable on his return or if he's going to be ever able to play again, at least at the same level. But I think the person left on the board that could live up or play up to those standards is Rashaan Evans, linebacker from Alabama.
Yeah. If Vander Esch was still on the board, I'd say almost a guaranteed. He just kind of reminds me of a Pittsburgh linebacker, but Evans is a stud. He's somebody a lot of teams should be considering, especially with Smith and Edmonds off the board. But Evans is a freak, a 3-down linebacker. He's going to be able to fill the spot. Well, I don't think you'll ever be able to completely fill the spot that Shazier leaves, which, because like you said, I don't think he's ever going to get to play again, which really sucks because he was probably one of the best linebacker in the league. But they have to address that spot.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately. Hopefully he comes back. It'd be great. And if that happens, then you have Rashaan Evans and Ryan Shazier, and you never have to worry about it again. But,
Yep.
but yeah, I like the selection for sure. And the team that actually beat the Steelers in the playoffs is just the Jacksonville Jaguars, pick at 29. The AFC Championship game runner-ups. The Jaguars, I think, at least by all indications, are sticking with Blake Bortles, which is an enigma to me. I still don't understand it. They fixed their running back issue last year with Leonard Fournette. Their defense is out of this world. Obviously, they can play with anybody. They damn near beat the Patriots.
Yeah.
It's and Bortles actually played pretty well in that game, but so when you look at the Jaguars roster, they don't need a linebacker. They don't need corners. They don't need defensive line.
They basically don't need defense.
Yeah, they don't need defense. I think that wide receiver is okay-ish. Mm-hmm. They obviously could use some talent there, but I think like you can wait for one of the second tier guys in day 2 or day 3. So I think with the need that they need to fill the most here is going to be tight end.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure Mercedes Lewis is actually gone now, if I'm not mistaken. So he has been on the team for 29 years, it feels like. So in order to kind of fill that spot for the Jags, I see them taking Dallas Goedert.
Yep. I like it.
So the second tight end off the board very well could be the first. It just, take your pick on which one you like better. Same kind of situation with the tackles. But, I like his size. It's going to be pretty similar to pretty similar to Mercedes Lewis. Just a big tight end that can, block and catch. So we'll see if Blake Bortles is actually the real deal now.
Yep. Just give him more weapons, see how he does. Moving on to 30, to the Minnesota Vikings, Brian's favorite here. Similar to the Jaguars, I don't think they need a lot on defense. I think their defense is pretty set. They just inked up Eric Kendricks to a new contract. Very well deserving. He's one of the better linebackers in the league, still young. He's got a lot of football left. I think when I look at the Minnesota offense, the biggest issue there is the offensive line, specifically in the middle. And I think in order to protect the newly acquired Kirk Cousins and get a rhythm going in the running game, especially with Dalvin Cook returning from injury, I think they will address the guard position and take Isaiah Wynn from Georgia.
I like it. He's another one of the guards that was a standout at the All-Star games in the offseason for college football, and he is going to step right in there and make that offensive line really good.
He's very versatile too. He can play tackle as well if you needed him to.
And the Vikings getting back Dalvin Cook off of injury is going to be huge, and Kirk Cousins will hopefully put to rest any concerns anyone has about whether or not he deserves the money.
Yeah.
So, but so at that point, it's all on him. He has all the weapons needs to succeed now, and the protection that he needs. So, Vikings looking at another potential Super Bowl run.
Speaking of becoming Super Bowl appearance teams.
Yeah, we got the king of kings here, the New England Patriots, the team that never seems to die, the one that just refuses to go away, with their second first-round pick. This is their actual first-round pick. The other one was the one they acquired from the Saints, right? Maybe? No. Did they get it from? I can't remember. I think it was the Saints. Or no, it was somebody. Saints was last year. The Rams,
Brandon
that's
Cooks.
right. Yeah, when they... That's right, yeah. I knew it was Brandon Cooks. So they basically just rented him for a year.
There's a name I hope you say here.
But I'm going to. This is the first thing I was going for because I hate it. And I thought you were going to take him at 20, but God, I hate it. But this is how the NFL works, and this is how my life crumbles in front of everybody else. But my absolute favorite player in the draft is going to get taken here by the Patriots because my favorite team took the guy that he's going to be replacing. Yeah. So with Dion Lewis moving to the Titans, that spot on the roster will be filled by Sony Michel, running back from Georgia. He's my absolute favorite player in this draft, and I hate to see him go anywhere except for Tennessee.
Him on the Patriots is like worst case scenario for any opposing team.
Yeah, Michel has the best vision and best game speed of any running back in this draft. I seriously would put him above Saquon Barkley, but it's ridiculous. Him and Nick Chubb at Georgia, he's a freak, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I was hoping so much that he would sneak under the radar, be a day 2 guy, and the Titans could scoop him up. But with the way things played out in free agency, that's why you don't mock before free agency. Patriots grab in my opinion, probably the best running back in the draft.
Yeah.
You heard it here. I said it. Sony Michel.
Now, moving on to the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles at 32. Part of me wants to say they'll take best player available here, and that would be Mike McGlinchey. But I think their offensive line is one of the better offensive lines in the league. Very versatile, athletic, and their tackles are currently Lane Johnson and Jason Peters. They don't really need help at the tackle position, so I'm going to steer away from the offensive tackle position and go with the next best thing I can think of that they could possibly need, given the recent release of Daryl Worley. I think they could add to their cornerback depth and get someone who could come in and potentially play right away. And I think the best corner available at this point would be Mike Hughes, corner from UCF.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what a trade that was to get Daryl Worley, huh? It really worked out for him, didn't it? Yeah, hey, you got you Torrey Smith, so that's all you can ask for. But yeah, Hughes is probably the best option, I would say, at this point. It's between him and Isaiah Oliver at this point for the best corner available. So, but that gives the Eagles. There's been some talk about Ronald Darby being let go or traded, or not coming back. So that gives them nice little safety blanket, especially if Sidney Jones doesn't come back 100% healthy. I think so. But yeah, the Eagles, they don't really need anything because they didn't lose anybody really. That's for the loss. What, LeGarrette Blount? Oh well, they have 3 other running backs that are really good. So they re-signed Alshon Jeffrey. They still have Nelson Aguilar. They have Ertz. They have Wentz coming back. So what more do you want?
If Michelle was still on the board, I was going to take Michelle here. But I think Michelle makes more sense for the Patriots than the Eagles. So I just went with what I thought was the next biggest need, I guess, and that was corner.
100%. Not too bad. 32 picks, an hour and 20-ish minutes. Hopefully some of them are right. Hopefully we gave you a little bit of insight.
Yep.
If not, then we sound like idiots, and then everybody laughs at us behind our backs. So there's that. But any last thoughts on the draft heading into this wonderful time?
Nothing much. Just pay attention to those rumors. I think some of them are legit. Some of them are just smoke screens. I think one thing for me that I think is almost certain is that the Dolphins or the Bills are going to trade up into the top 10. That's what.
Yeah, I'd have to.
And they're going to take Rosen or Mayfield. I'm still convinced that Mayfield's going to go to the Jets. So I think at that point it would be a race between those two to get Rosen. So we shall see.
Yep, it's all about that Thursday night, baby. It's going to be a busy one this upcoming week. We'll be tucked away inside of a movie theater and, watching our lives crumble in front of us, and then get to come out and see what kind of chaos happened in the NFL draft. So it's going to be fun. I can't wait to see all the bizarre trades and just whatnot that happens, on Thursday. It's going to be fun.
Oh yeah. Well, that was a solid first episode. I like it.
Yeah, not too bad. Not a nice way to knock off the rust and get back into the swing of things. Hopefully we'll get Bryan back next week, and then we'll get back on a regular schedule. So be on the lookout for some informational stuff coming up about the league. Obviously, we have to talk about the draft order reveal. We have to talk about when the draft is actually going to be held. Late August is always a popular time. So we'll dive into that and talk about other things throughout the remainder of the offseason. But the league opens up, I think, next week. So we'll get everybody signed up again and start getting hyped and start doing more fantasy mocks and get ready to kick off the Jordan Young era of
just have to be thankful that the Chad Raritan reign has now come to a close.
until he wins it back.
Oh man, that'll be the day when everyone quits.
That's right. I'll make sure that. Yep, I'll make sure he starts out 0-1. Don't worry, because we're going to do another defenses and kickers
Week 1.
Battle at the beginning of the season. Yep, week 1. Nothing like starting the season in a 150-point hole because you just play defenses and kickers week 1. So it happens. Anyway, let's take this thing away, close it up, and set people up for next time.
Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. For those of you who listen, pay attention to the next episode for potential league information and other topics discussed. But until then, thank you.
We'll see you.